a lot of guys turn off when they get home and they feel they have every excuse under the sun to turn off because they just worked 12 hours, 15 hours. Maybe they traveled. And so, learning how to turn up instead of turn off when you walk into that house is night and day in terms of like the culture that you actually create. We all, as business owners, we're cultivators of culture is what we do. Yes. We create culture. We know it's necessary to move the needle to drive the vision, but a lot of us lack the ability or the awareness to do that inside of our four walls.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Solid. We're glad to be with you today here. My partner, Jeff, he's still traveling with his family, but we were fortunate enough to have a special guest here, Nick Alfano, who flew into town, and we were able to take advantage of him being here. He's going to share his story today. He's got an incredible story. He's had so much success in his life, in business, and has gone through a lot of challenges and struggles, overcome those challenges and struggles, and today has just really dialed in all the main areas of his life. Faith, fitness, family, and finance. I said those in the wrong order, but he's got them all dialed in. So anyway, hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you would, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and let us know what you'd like to see more of. And until next time, stay solid. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Solid. Very excited about today's episode. We have a special guest here. His name is Nick Alfano. And I'm just getting to know him, actually. This is actually my first time meeting him today in person. We're very fortunate to have him come out all the way from Nashville, Tennessee to be here with us today. He's got an awesome story and just doing a really good job out there, I think, of helping men be solid men, which is what we're all about. And so, Nick, honored to have you here today. I know you've been running today. You've been on, what, 2 other podcasts?
Yeah. Jumped off a plane and we just run the circuit. So, but save the best for last. So
is that Brydger's doing? Is he picked you up? And then...
Yeah, he picked me up. He fed me. He put some hydration in front of me and said, let's run.
Take care of him, Brydger.
Yeah.
So Brydger's actually Ken Purdy's son. Ken Purdy's been on our podcast before. SWAT team guy. If you all want to look back at that episode, it was an awesome episode. So Brydger is his son. So Brydger, you went to Nick's retreat about 2 weeks ago, right?
Yep. Met Nick through Eric Gubler. Met him in Nashville.
Good. Yep. And it's called The Program.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Nick, you've got quite a story and you've had a lot of success in your life. And I think what you're doing now is, in my opinion, probably the greatest work you've done. You're doing
100%.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your little bit of your background and where you come from, what you've done, what you've accomplished, and what's got you here.
Yeah. So, hey, first, thanks for having me. I love, you said making men more solid men. Like a lot of people ask me over time, like, what do you do? What do you do now? And I don't have a great way of saying it. So I say, yeah, we just make dudes better dudes.
Yeah, I like it.
That's it. So I think this is the perfect place to be, to share this story. So I appreciate you having me on. 42 now, so getting up there. Serial entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for 25 plus years. Former attorney, put myself through law school because I thought that'd be cool. Mm-hmm. Kind of a backup plan or kind of a, checking everyone else's boxes except the ones that really mattered, mine. I've built some pretty cool stuff, but I've also burnt a lot of stuff to the ground.
Okay.
I'm just living way out of alignment with like who I am at my core. Didn't even know what a core value was or how to define those. So I've been with my wife, Lindsay, for 24 years. Been some
Congrats.
pretty rocky stuff there. Yeah. I have a 20, an 18, and a 16-year-old, 2 girls and a boy. So I've got one away at Bama, Roll Tide.
Cool.
And then I've got my entrepreneur daughter who thinks she's in a gap year, but I know it's a permanent, I'm going to be an entrepreneur thing. And then my 16-year-old little stud, he's my dude. He's has a chance to go pro. He's out in Nashville and playing soccer and
really
pulling up trees out there. Yeah.
Right on. Has he been to Europe and stuff playing soccer?
Yeah. So we've done a couple summers in Europe.
Good deal.
He's had some looks for some MLS teams. We're trying to get him in Europe. I think, just by asking that, I can tell
a little bit. I mean, yeah.
Well, MLS, unfortunately it's like school teacher. It's just money. They don't really get credit out here, but
yep.
You cross the pond and they're the highest paid athletes on the planet Earth. So
right.
And the sport's just different out there. It's just the way of life.
And he just loves it.
He loves it. He's obsessed,
I think soccer's a great sport. Seems like he can play it forever for the most part. part.
Yeah. I mean, the conditioning is insane. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. That's awesome. So being a serial entrepreneur, did your parents teach you that, or how was your upbringing as a kid? I mean, where did you learn that?
Most of my life, I operated with a chip on my shoulder, so like I definitely didn't get the entrepreneur bug from them, not directly anyway. So I was born and raised in Biloxi, Mississippi. Moved out to Cali when I was 8. Dad was pretty much an absentee father. He moved out to California a year ahead of us to set up shop. He worked for like a cable company, like fiber optic cable. This is when like fiber was getting big, and they sent him out to Cali. He said he was going to get a house and get everything set up, and then call for his family. We moved out there in July of '89, and they were divorced by October because his version of set up shop was go find a younger, hotter version of my mom and start a new family. So,
how old were you when all that happened?
I was 8. Yeah, it was summer, my 8th birthday.
Okay.
So,
Ouch. Yeah.
yeah. So, Cali was crazy because it was a bit of a culture shock coming from Biloxi, Mississippi. That's like as deep in the South as you can get, right there on the Gulf Coast. And, one of the craziest things about where we grew up is like condoned, I guess would be the word, but it was just acceptable to like put hands on your children. And then when you cross over to big blue California, that's a no-no. And so what was happening is, as liberal as that state is, and again, it's not any of the teachers' fault, but they're mandated by the state to report abuse. Okay. And so there was this constant like cycle of me showing up to school with some marks that were a little further than just slaps, and then they would call CPS gets involved, principal gets involved, bring mom down. By the way, dad's completely gone by now, so it's just mom, and essentially it's just this cycle of like I feel I got my gift of gab from my mom, so like she would just talk her way out of it, and then of course what would happen when we get home, her version of events is I'm out there like getting her into this mess. And so I would get, further disciplined, for lack of a better term. Okay. And round and round that went. And then right around my 14th birthday, got a couple muscles and a little bass in my voice. I hit puberty like we all do. And I defended myself pretty violently. And I put her through a sliding glass door in a little 2-bedroom apartment. And she left a note the next day, basically to the effect of Nicholas, my full name, basically show me I can no longer discipline you guys. Rent's paid for a month and there's some groceries to figure it out. And she walked away from all 3 of us, and we're 1 year apart. So I was.
And you're 14.
Yeah. And I'm the middle. So there's a 13, a 14, and a 15-year-old just sitting there figuring out what's next. And I was homeless from 14 on. And not homeless in the sense that maybe people listening are thinking. There were some park benches and some like curbs and things at times, but for the most part, I was a professional couch surfer. I was fairly sociable, had the gift of gab, like I mentioned. So like had some friends. No one really knew what was going on. It was kind of like I just had a backpack on wherever I went with my essentials in it, and I landed where I landed. Wow! And that was the bulk of my high school career. Okay.
So you kept going to school?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, if you find my senior yearbook, and my wife will show it to you, I was voted most likely to be a millionaire and best dressed.
No way.
Yeah. And it's really just a testament to how addicted to affirmation I was at that time, and how much I did not want people to know what was going on. So much so that I put on like the biggest show.
Where did you learn that? Was that just something you...
Maybe survival instinct. Maybe I just, it was really like, I was so mortified. So we had already, when we moved out from Biloxi, Mississippi, we were on food stamps, and like we were the brokest. Okay. I could actually remember my mom to make rent half the time, and we moved 16 times in 17 years. It was crazy stuff. Wow. Point being, there was times where she couldn't even make rent, and so she would sleep with our landlord to make rent. It was just a thing. And I learned a lot about what I thought women were through my mom and my sister growing up. But so we went from like already being like the poor kids from the South to then like beyond poor homeless. And so I got emancipated early on, which is I think kind of pushed me into my law career. So that's basically where you divorce your parents. Okay. And so I had to do that to find money for college, because I was already trying to plot my way through school. And so to even fill out a FAFSA form and actually qualify for anything, I had to show that I was like destitute. And so it allowed me to get a job earlier than most could get a job. Yep. And so any dollars I had was just going to I bought my first pair of Air Jordans, and like you name it. I was just like, let me look as not broke as possible. Yeah. And hopefully I can start talking to girls, and hopefully, play sports and just be a normal kid, and no one has to know.
Okay.
And I just took it to the craziest level.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you meet your wife in California?
Yeah, we met in technically 6th grade.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And
She's been to a long time.
Yeah, and we've been dating since her junior year, my senior year in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, 24 years.
All right,
together.
good.
Yeah.
So you graduated high school, then what happened?
Yeah, so I finished up high school. I went away to college at UC Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
So about 2.5 hours north of where I was in Cali.
Is that law school? Is that
No, it's just undergrad at this time.
Okay.
Yes, I was a poli-sci major, so the plan was law school, and then I ended up getting my wife pregnant, and she wasn't going to school with me. So I moved back down Southern California, and actually, interesting story. I didn't even finish getting my undergrad stuff. I don't know if people know this, but you can test out of your undergrad. So I ended up going to law school, but to get into law school, you have to have your undergrad in poli-sci or whatever. But there's these things called CLEP tests. So I took a series of tests and basically tested out of school to qualify for law school, and then I did get my JD, my Juris Doctorate. So I ended up going to law school. But that was mainly just to further my entrepreneurial madness. But yeah, it's. I mean, there's a lot there to unpack. But for the most part, we had a very rough time with my first daughter. A lot of complications. Like my wife, literally like flatlined on the bed, and
wow,
yeah, it was a massive. She was in the newspaper for all kinds of not good reasons because. It's like an 83% mortality rate. She had this thing called amniotic embolism, so they went to go break her water, and essentially there was nothing to break, and it was in her lungs. So they did like an emergency C-section. It was very rough, and so I left college to come back home because she was in the ICU for 2 months.
Okay.
And I had to take baby home by myself. And again, it ain't about me because she had it way harder than I did.
Yeah.
But I was forced to like make a decision.
First baby.
Yeah, first baby.
Wow,
crazy circumstance. So it was like, okay, we're going to park school. And I didn't actually return to law school for 7 or 8 years. I ended up starting 2 more kids, so started a family.
Okay.
Started a couple businesses.
What were you doing business-wise during that time to fund all that?
Yeah, so I started a debt collection company, which I'm also not proud of. I burnt that to the ground recently. Think like Boiler Room meets like Wolf of Wall Street.
It was like intense.
It was just everything was about.
You give us your people you need to collect from, we'll take care of it.
Yeah, slamming deals on the phone, say whatever it takes. No moral compass. Everything was about money.
Okay.
Opened up 23 locations nationwide.
I was a collector for Discover Card for a while, but probably not the same.
Yeah, probably you probably had some rules that you had to follow there.
Rules.
Yeah, some things that you could and couldn't say.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about that industry, and it's disgusting, and I'm actually notorious now for pulling back the curtain because I've been on both sides, is there's debt buyers and there's like contingency collectors.
Okay.
So we were actually debt buyers, which is where it gets a little more aggressive because we actually would go buy like an old Discover portfolio.
Okay.
And then we roll the dice on what we can and can't collect. And when you're a couple $100,000 in on a portfolio,
you're going to get that.
You're going to say whatever you're going to say.
Yeah, I get it.
The yield is through the roof, but the tactics used to accomplish said yield are also not there. So
gotcha.
I did that for 7 or 8 years, and I let that define me because then I'm buying $200,000 cars, and I'm the man. I've got the house now. I've got the wife, the kids, and outwardly appearances, I'm successful. Box checked, and it was again affirmation seeking. Like I'm very proud to say that I'm not an addict, or I thought I wasn't an addict.
Yeah.
I've never been addicted to. I've been drunk maybe 5 times in my life. Senior prom was the last one I can remember. I've never done any drug, never gambled, never games, never done anything. But this approval seeking, this affirmation seeking was 100% like my dopamine hit, like my drug of choice. And when it got really bad was when I started seeking it from women. So
okay.
Yeah, 24 years with my wife. Cheated on her for 17.
17.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's, a big part of like why I'm here now and why the program was birthed is I lost my virginity to my wife, known each other since 7th grade.
Yep.
Married or, dating since senior year in high school. So it's full-blown high school sweethearts. And I was out there just making money. And when I left my house, I left my 4 walls, I felt like King Kong. Had the cars, and dudes would pull up to me at stoplight like, oh, bro, that's sick. I had the muscles and the tattoos, and I'm building businesses, and I'm hiring 30, 40 people at a time, and I'm responsible for their pay, and I'm showing them how to make tons of money even though it lacks integrity. Like, I'm the man.
Yeah.
And then when I come home, I'm not receiving any of that, and I don't get it. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and just keep stepping outside. I'm going to avoid my four walls that, oh, by the way, I created.
Didn't feel the dopamine at home, but
none.
You get,
yeah. So it's like, let me sedate by just avoiding this and going out here and seeking it. And eventually, money wasn't enough and all these things weren't enough. And I started seeking it from women.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Why would you say you weren't getting the dopamine at home? I mean, we could always say it was because of my wife or kids, but you probably say that's not the case. So what do you think?
Yeah. So then 100% it wasn't my fault. Are you kidding me? Like,
yeah.
How am I worshipped out here?
You.
And am I coming here? Yeah, and so
you were the victim.
Yeah, 100%. Right? Like, I'll show you. I do everything around here. I provide. And looking back now, and 5 years of like hardcore work on myself, and having access to tremendous amount of tools and network and the reps, it's really like it's all my fault. Like the way I was showing up, was forcing them to show up a certain way. And so there's a saying we use now. I actually have an exercise I do with my guys where anytime dad gets home, like I have you guys park a mile away, even in your own driveway, right? And you turn the ignition off and you tell yourself this sentence as many times as it takes to change your state. And it's, when dad gets home, he sets the tone. When dad gets home, he sets the tone. Because you have a choice when you walk into your four walls, when you turn the keys, when you turn the doorknob, like how you show up, with what energy you bring. Are you, a lot of guys turn off when they get home and they feel they have every excuse under the sun to turn off because they just worked 12 hours, 15 hours. Maybe they traveled. And so, learning how to turn up instead of turn off when you walk into that house is night and day in terms of like the culture that you actually create. We all, as business owners, we're cultivators of culture is what we do. Yes. We create culture. We know it's necessary to move the needle, to drive the vision, but a lot of us lack the ability or the awareness to do that inside of our four walls.
Right.
So yeah, I was 100% responsible for every single way that my family was showing up for me.
Uh-huh. I think it's a mistake a lot of guys make because they think, oh, my wife's not giving me the appreciation or affection or gratitude or whatever they think, and that's not it.
Yeah.
We can play that role. We can be the victim if we want to be, but that's probably not going to work out very well. Yeah. We got to take that responsibility. I love that. What'd you say? When I show up from work, I set the tone.
Yeah, when dad gets home, he sets the tone. When dad gets home, he sets the tone. If you just like, now it's funny because we just moved to Nashville a year and a half ago, and I'm in a basement, and I have 14 steps before I go from basement to house.
Okay.
And so that's my walk now. And it's like I have 14 steps to figure out how to change my frame, leave work in the basement, maybe there's something on fire in the business that needs to be fixed. But it's like, how can I leave all that and truly be present for little man? Uh-huh. How can I truly show up for my wife in a way that like will reciprocate what I ultimately want from her?
Okay.
Because if I don't start being intentional with that and I don't set the tone that I ultimately want, I'm the king of this castle, right? And that's not to say, again, King Kong beat my chest, it's mine. Like, where does the queen sit on the chessboard? She sits beside the king. Mm-hmm. Not in front, not behind. She's right next to me, right? But I still have to be the king. Like, they want you to show up and be the king. You know what I mean? Like, women don't want, like, there's that fine balance of masculine and feminine energy.
Right.
And I think that's another thing a lot of guys are lacking nowadays is, like, we've been kind of forced into the feminine, like, things like toxic masculinity are being thrown around. And so some guys are quite the opposite of how I was showing up. They're showing up like kind of a doormat at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
And women don't know any better, especially when you put kids in the mix. Like, women, they will castrate the entire house if dude's not showing up.
Sure.
I mean, if he's not showing up solid.
Because they got to survive.
Yeah, that's all they know now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they don't want that. They want to be swooned. They want to be, like they don't want to carry the masculine and feminine load.
They want to be led.
100%.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. So 14 years, unfaithful. What changed? What, I mean, all that was kind of going on, that kind of a lifestyle. What snapped? What event was it? Was it an event or was it?
There's these two like fulcrum points, like one that really led to it. And then this one like hammered it home and like pretty much built the trajectory of what I'm doing now. I call the first one like my man in the mirror moment. Mm-hmm. So my wife and I like were full blown like a trial separation. I was 2 cities away. I had a nice apartment. I was, again, sleeping with random Instagram models this time. And I'm in Corona, California. And I had just had sex with somebody that didn't matter, right? And I literally like was sobbing just looking in the mirror at myself.
Really?
And at the time, I came up with this sentence, and it just really manifested what I was already dealing with. And it was this concept that like your son will become you, and your daughter will marry you.
Wow.
And the more you say that, and if you say it while you're staring in the mirror, you start to really analyze like who you are at your core. And I didn't like what was staring back. I hated it, matter of fact. Mm-hmm. And I said some choice words that I won't say on this podcast to myself over and over. I was very hard on myself. Mm-hmm. And so I started kind of like, for the first time in my life, seeking help. I wasn't like the man that had it all figured out, had all the answers, I'll whatever. And I had a gentleman that was basically a soccer dad, and he was going to this event in San Diego a couple, 3-4 weeks later. He said, it's a little too aggressive for me, but I think it's right up your alley. And like, I don't know, man, 5 years ago, if you would have said Tony Robbins or personal development or any of those things, I'd probably slap you across the face. Like, it just was not in my wheelhouse. It was weird. It was woo-woo. I was very skeptical, very resistant to this. And I went to this event called, I think it was like Warrior Con 3, but it was a gentleman named Garrett J. White. He runs a program called Wake Up Warrior.
Yep.
And I went to this event in San Diego, 2.5-day event, tons of people speaking, tons of value from stage. And one sentence like spoke like through me, like moved me out of my chair. And that sentence was, in a world full of liars, the truth is a declaration of war. And like, it hit hard because it was like, we all like to think we're honest, and I would probably say generally throughout my life I've been honest, but I'm cheating, I've stolen things, I'm making money the wrong way, I'm you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
A lot of what I'm doing and what makes me as a person is dishonest.
Yep.
And I was a lawyer at the time, and they had given us these journals, and I wrote this thing called the Truth Agreement. And I literally made a covenant with myself to never tell a lie ever again. It was 4 years on December 18th, so it'll be 4.5 years now.
Okay.
So we're coming up around, hopefully 5 years soon.
Yep.
And so those were like my two big moments. So Man in the Mirror, and then what I call the Truth Agreement. And like the Truth Agreement launched the program moving forward. But what happened amidst all of that was like this journey of personal work, and what ultimately saved my marriage was that concept of truth. Because I had what I call the conversation, which, since then my wife and I have walked several couples through infidelity and other things, porn addictions, you name it. But what we found is all women who have been on the bad side of that, the wrong side of that, they all want some version of closure. And what's crazy is like, they all want to know things that like don't make she wanted to know positions and times and dates and like just things that like were like what, but I had promised myself, like more than anything, like whatever she wants to know, I'm saying it.
Did she kind of know what was going on? Do you think?
100%.
Okay.
They always know. Okay. I'm gonna say that right now for anybody listening. Like they always know.
Right.
Your energy, like and there's an actual vibrational frequency that you put off when you're up to no good.
Sure,
that's a fact.
Yep.
And conversely, there's a vibrational frequency that's given off when things are going well. It's kind of like that newness feeling, So yeah, like she always knew, she always had intuition, over so many years, she had caught me a few times. And the worst thing about her catching me was we always got back together. And I say that because what we didn't know was, to my point of like, your daughters will marry you. We may all say, be faithful. We may say, go to church. We may say, acts of service, serve others. We may say all these things, but then what we do is what they really see. And they're always watching. They know if you're getting up early, if you're disciplined, if you do, how you court your wife. So like my daughters at the time that all this was coming out, they were teenagers and they're dating now. And then eventually they got cheated on. And so what do you think happened? Well, they took the dudes back. Why? Because mommy did it. And so we had, by our acts, not by our words, created a condition where it was like, well, all guys cheat. It seems pretty normal. And oh, by the way, all moms take them back or all girls take them back because it is normal for guys to cheat. So it becomes an acceptable behavior. So I indirectly, through my actions, my selfish actions, set my own babies up for like perpetual heartbreak.
Right.
Which was like disgusting in and of itself. And so we had the conversation, which again, we've found over time that like a lot of women want some version of closure, and for most of them it is. So usually what happens is the version that's going through their heads is like 10x worse than like anything that really happened. And that's just human nature. Most of the fears that we create are way worse than the realities. So I have that conversation. She wants nothing to do with me, of course, for quite a while, but we just kept doing the work. We stayed separated for quite a while. Now we're in like a place where I can sit here and you can broadcast this to the world. And not only is she okay with it, but she promotes it because she knows our story gives some people hope or permission, or if we can help one couple, it's a total win. Yep. Even though it is hard for her because she has to relive some of this, or she, because she gets told 17 years, how could you possibly stay? Once a cheater, always a cheater. Like she hears it all, and she got her. So she got heckled or whatever you want to call it. But a lot of things happen when you start living in truth. Like the craziest thing that happened is I lost all my friends. All my friends. Like friends, quote.
Interesting. Right.
Like like, you know this one too, like you are the company you keep, like you are the average of the 5 people you associate with most. So imagine who my friends were. Like we were all cheating on our wives.
Yeah.
Like there were moments where we're like sharing pictures of side chicks with our girls 20 feet away.
Yeah.
And like they wanted nothing. They didn't want me nowhere near because I'm over here just like, and I'm not like voluntarily standing on a rooftop screaming my truth, but if someone asks, it's coming out.
Sure.
And I definitely never went up to their wives and said like, check your boy, you know, wasn't my place.
Right.
But what I've noticed is when you live and you walk this path, it forces other people to hold up their own mirror and start to look at self. And most people just aren't ready to handle their truth. And so it just alienates like that's the sentence in a world full of liars. The truth is a declaration of war. Because people were like, Nick's high and mighty. F this guy. Are you kidding me? Like, stay away from him. Like, he thinks he's better than everybody now. I lost everybody.
So initially, it had to be, I would think, I mean, you were just ready. You were ready to change, it sounds like, when you heard Garrett say that. I mean, it had to be maybe very difficult initially to, maybe it wasn't, I don't know, maybe you were so ready, it was just time for you to let that old version of yourself go, start telling the truth from there on out. Was it really difficult to do that? And then after you did that, or as you did that, was there like a big weight lifted off your shoulder? Was it like, boom, I'm a new man? Maybe talk about that, because I think a lot of people might be in a situation right now that are, lying in some way to themselves, right? Different levels, right? And they're afraid to tell the truth, and because it seems hard, and they're afraid what they might lose. Because like you said, you lost all your friends. You might lose your businesses. You might lose things. But is it worth it? Is it worth it? I mean, what's the feeling like? I mean, I'd like you to talk about that a little bit, because, I mean, you look great, you feel great, your energy's great. I mean, I would assume
it's the happiest I've ever been in my life. And I hate to use the word happy because it's so like, canned up and cliche. But like, I'm a big neuroscience guy. Like I'm a big, like, when I talk about the program, like we reprogram subconscious minds for a living. Like that's my obsession, is like getting in your brain and hacking and getting rid of stuff that doesn't serve you, and rebuilding and remapping and recoding things that serve you. Cool. And all that to say, like, everything was dopamine, like for everything. And so like now my life is revolved around another chemical, because we are ultimately all chasing some chemical, and it's oxytocin. If we want to play the big 5 chemicals, and we can go down that rabbit hole, but like if you take a look at just even if you're chasing like the instant, if we look at the instant weight lifted, or the instant feeling, was like dopamine's cool. But now when I speak from this new place of truth, and now when I go from success to significant, and I'm just helping another human being, like that exchange of chemicals as a result is like 10x more powerful than anything I've ever felt on this side. And I don't care who I lose. I lost friends, but did I? I lost people that were no longer in alignment with my core values, so they had to go. And so like the instant effect was, for those people looking for like an instant light switch when they start telling the truth, that happens right away. But what really happens over the long term is like it's akin to like that Eminem 8 Mile moment. Like the freedom that the truth will set you free. Like no one will ever have leverage over me, period, ever, for the rest of my life. And that makes me,
you're in total control.
That's it. It's the most powerful dude in the room is the dude with nothing to hide. Yeah. Nothing.
It's awesome.
Like anything you think you can find on me, it's on the internet already. I've set it myself, and if I have it, I'll drop it real quick. Like I don't care. Yeah. And everyone here in this room might think like I'm a weirdo or whatever, pompous. Like you may not like me. That's okay too. Yeah. That's like, this is just who I am. This is my truth.
That's awesome.
My truth right now. Like I can tell you right now, we were driving over. He took a picture of me on the last podcast. And another truth, I'm going to say this podcast that hurts me right now, is I'm 240 right now. I don't like being this heavy. Okay. I used to do bodybuilding, 240, 205. And I actually almost wanted to punch him and not repost that picture because I'm heavy right now, like in my midsection, right? And so like the angle's not flattering. And I literally almost actually haven't even shared it yet, but I'm going to commit to sharing it because my ego says like, you're not in your best shape right now. But my truth is exactly that. The truth is I've made decisions that have allowed me to get back up to 240. My truth is I'm still scared to shake this bodybuilder look because I think it still serves me when I know in my heart it doesn't, right? So just this is how obsessed I am with this word. Yeah. It could be something as small as a picture that doesn't flatter me, whereby if I don't post it, I'm almost omitting the truth. You know what I mean? To me, that's like how hard I've gone with it. You know? Right. And so the Eminem 8 Mile moment is like, I will drop everything on me, and it is so liberating. Like, is it hard at the beginning? 100%. So if there's someone like you said, like sitting and lying in wait, like, I don't know, I'm on the fence.
I guarantee there's how many men out there that are in that
everybody,
situation
it's everybody
now.
to some degree. And the thing is, like, And they're probably like, oh, it sounds cool for this guy. Well, it worked for him. Well, how do I know he's really happy? Like, I get it.
You might risk losing your family.
Well, all right.
Right?
So
That's a risk.
When you brought this up the first time, and I'm glad you circled back to that because I almost lost this thought. I was prepared, and I think every guy has to be here. I was prepared to lose her not for that conversation, but for the actions that led to that conversation. Because I had to tell myself I already lost her. Like, if I lose her because I told her everything, it wasn't because of what I told her, was
Right.
it? It was because of the actions I did for 16 years, 17 years.
Exactly.
It was the very first time I ever stepped out on her.
It's big.
And when I committed to that, and I wasn't married to the outcome of the conversation, I was married to the outcome that should have probably happened 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I just
Good
put
point.
it. I put it in his hands, and I'm like, this is exactly what it's supposed to be.
Good
But at
point.
least I came out with truth, and I came with me. And if she's gone, it's not because of this conversation I'm scared to have. It's because she probably should have gone before. Action, consequence, action, consequence.
Yeah.
And that helped me get through or even have that conversation. You know what I mean?
Because it would have been, it was superficial anyway.
Yeah, it was that just had to happen more for her closure and for me to just live in truth from now on. Clean slate. And if you leave me, I get it. I 100%, 100%. I know it's not because of that conversation.
Wow. That's so good, dude. That's awesome. Well, awesome. Well, maybe change topics a little bit.
Sure.
So you're fit. You're fit.
Sometimes.
Talk about that a little bit. I mean, I know you said you're not as fit as you'd like to be right now.
Nah, I have this is like a mental issue for me, man. It's funny because we actually have all these guys rated. We have these 4 domains I think make up any man's life, which is faith, family, fitness, and finance.
Yep.
And we put money last and we put God
So
first.
we actually on our YouTube, if you get on, it says we have F's to give: faith, family, finance.
Oh, then we're best friends.
Yeah. And we're gonna add freedom on there, but yeah. So
I have a big thing we do called the whole event we do is called Facts to Freedom. So where are you today, and what does your version of freedom look like across those domains? Because that's ultimately what we're all looking for, some version of freedom.
Yeah.
And so we do this exercise where it's like, are you in freedom? Or are you in bondage specific to that F? And so, like, in my faith, I feel free. In my family, I feel very free. I've done a lot of work in that area. In my fitness, some people might look at me and be like, oh, he feels free. Like, and I can still dunk a basketball right now. I ran a 5K yesterday.
how tall are you?
5'10". Yeah.
Gosh, you've done that.
240.
You're 42.
Yeah. But I'm also like, I lived that bodybuilder world for so long. I did my share of steroids, like the whole 9, competed, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. The biggest move I made this year is I left this bodybuilding gym called Carbon Culture, which is out in Nashville, Tennessee. It's all like everyone has like a pro card in there. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping, and I know it was a very proactive, intentional measure, that if I hang out with guys that are more interested in just like the performance aspect. So like every year I get down to 205. I'm 242 right now, 242 pounds this morning. And every year I get down to like 205, 208. But then someone says the wrong word. Someone says like instead of, they could say lean, but they say small. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, lift something big. So, point being, some people might look at me and say, well, he probably says freedom, not bondage for his fitness domain. But no, it's bondage for me because mentally I'm struggling with the fact that there's still benefits to being a big, scary guy, or like I need to add years to my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm definitely at that age now where it's like, how do I add a 5 or 6 instead of like looking jacked in a casket, a clear casket?
Sure.
Sure. Like, so.
So do you think some of that in the past, like bodybuilding stuff, was a way to, I guess, feel better? I mean, do you think that it was what's the word I'm looking for?
It was definitely a facade. It was definitely,
yeah.
It was body. It was actual physical body armor.
Yeah. Everything was the outside. You're trying to make your outside image look great.
Don't look too close.
Because your inside was a mess.
It was destroyed.
Okay. Yeah. And it's only been 4.5 years since all this happened,
mm-hmm.
which on some regard probably feels like a long time ago, and in other ways probably feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about your story is I think it gives so much hope to. It's never too late. It's never too late to make that change.
Yeah.
Never too late to become the man or woman you want to become. And we have a lot of young men and young women, youth that watch this too. And in fact, we have some of them on sometimes as well. So your story is just, I think, it impacts so many of those young people as they are getting older, looking to get married, and just the sooner we can learn how to live our truth, which is tough to do when you're a teenager, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because we're all trying to fit in. And
everything's comparisonitis and social this, and like you said, you're still finding yourself. So maybe you don't even know what your truth is.
Yeah.
And then, you've got what group am I with? And then what are their values? So should I latch onto those? I don't know. And yeah, it's definitely.
If you could learn it as a teenager, imagine how much better you'd be as an adult. But 100%. I think most of us, me included, I think as an adult, a lot of my adult years, and probably still do it today, I'm still trying to put on a facade sometimes to look good or whatever, right?
To some degree. Yeah.
I can admit that. So So anyway, I appreciate you being on today. I know you've been running like crazy, and I think what you've shared has just been I appreciate it. I know it's a lot of personal stuff, and appreciate you and your wife for allowing that to take place. And tell us a little bit about the program and what you do there, and maybe how people can find you as well. Because I think I haven't been to it. Brydger's been to it. I know Eric Gubler's been to it. He's been on here as well.
Yeah. So I'm not the best at this part. I don't even do the plugging stuff. Eric usually does this for me. Reprogram.ai is like our landing page. We're very event centric right now, so it's kind of probably just highlights the events. My personal social is just the Nick Alfano, and like one thing I wanted to commit to for anything I did today, given the audience, is like we have this thing I just released called Whiteboard Wednesdays, which I usually use for paying members. But all that to say, it won't be a staff member or like an AI bot. Like you'll actually get me for an hour. We record it. If you want to do finance, we'll reverse engineer your whole business and give you some solid action items. You'll get a copy of what to do, like a blueprint. If you want to dance in the other domains too, that's fine. So like, I'd love to give that to whoever wants to hang out with me for an hour, and it will be me if it comes via this podcast. Mm-hmm. That's probably the best ways to get a hold of me. I'm pretty easy. Like, I don't hide behind the team for the most part until I get too big someday. But even then, I don't think I could do it. So,
well, I appreciate that, and I think everybody ought to check it out and look into that. And I think sometimes, for whatever reason, at least as men, we don't want to reach out and ask for help sometimes, right? And if we would be more willing to do that, I think we'd get a lot further, a lot faster, because there's so many people that have already done it. And if we were willing to ask for the help and plug in,
sidestep some landmines, collapse time,
big time,
100%,
big time. Especially learning from a guy like you who's built multiple businesses, very successful, and now today, very successful in all areas of your life. So
appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you being on.